All right, I know we have a guest speaker coming in right at 5:30, 5:35-ish, so um, let's hope she joins shortly, but if not, we'll just wait for a couple more minutes for everyone to join. Oh, hey, Natasha.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, great. Thanks for joining. We're excited for you to chat with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, great. So I think we'll wait a couple more minutes until the rest of folks join. So if you're okay with hanging around for like two-ish more minutes, and then we can get started.
Yeah, of course. I completely understand.
All right, cool. Thanks. So two-ish minutes, and then we can get it rolling.
Sounds good.
How's everyone doing on this fine Wednesday?
Wishing it wasn't so rainy today.
I know, which is so crazy. It's like on and off, just drizzling constantly. Oh, yeah, that's true, Brandy. It has been really, really hot, so a good cool down from that. Yeah, I do agree with you there, for sure. Um, so perfect timing. I know Jesse's joining now to kind of formally I can't speak, introduce Natasha. So I'll kind of hand it over to him to introduce her to share with us some gems for today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anissa. Hey, Natasha, thanks so much for taking the time to join us tonight. So Natasha is joining us from Ups Interactive. So she leads their HR and finance department. And so tonight she'll be talking a little bit about some of her perspective with regard to what it's like to both interview software engineers and also lead a company's HR department. She'll kind of have some tips in there with regard to your job hunt, your job search, resumes, and all that good stuff. So without further ado, Natasha, feel free to take it over, and let's give a big virtual round of applause for Natasha in the chat.
Thank you so much for the introduction and the virtual round of applause. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the leadership team for having me today. I respect your organization, and it's great to be involved in some capacity with what you guys are doing. So again, I really appreciate it. So I'm going to get started by just sharing my screen first. I've got the presentation here for you guys. And as Jesse said, I really want to give a little bit of insight in the department that I'm working in and some of my some perspectives from my point of view when I'm interviewing people, reviewing resumes, reviewing cover letters. And I hope that it helps you guys when you're on your job hunt and helps you really consider some of the important questions that you should be thinking about when you're selecting these jobs and when you're going through these interviews. So I'll start off by giving you a little bit of background on the company that I'm working for. So we're a software consultancy company. We started in 2016 with 4 partners. We started with traditional web and application-based software, and we, developed software for clients. In 2017 is when we started to move more into the blockchain space. We started the beginning of the year with 4 employees, and we're up to 9 full-time employees. Plus, we work with 10 or so contractors. So we are growing, on a regular basis, and things are changing around here. So I've been really busy in my department to try to improve some of these processes and improve some of these systems we're using to look through some of the applicants we're getting for these positions. What sets us apart in our benefits, I wanted to share with you some of the benefits that we offer so that you can start to think about whether or not these are things that are important to you and things that you want to look out for when you're applying to new positions. So one of which is that we are fully remote. We feel that this is important because people should have that ability to have that work-life balance and flexibility. I understand that this is possible for certain companies and not for others. Some employees prefer to be in person, others prefer to be remote. It really just depends on what motivates you and what's important to you. We also offer unlimited PTO. This is something that I know isn't as common, just depending on what company that you're looking to work with. It's usually regulated. But again, we really feel that the work-life balance is important. It's part of our culture. So, it's just another benefit we offer. In terms of wellness, we have company yoga that we host every month. We have actually a yoga instructor that we contract with, Karina. She's wonderful. And she leads a company yoga class every month. It is virtual. We have a fitness reimbursement policy, referral incentives, and that includes employees and, for business. So again, just some benefits to share with you, on my end that my company offers. So I also wanted to, let you know exactly what I'm doing and what I'm thinking on a day-to-day basis. When I conduct my interviews, it's really important that I leave a good impression about our company to the candidate. It's a first impression on our company culture and what's important to us and what we have to offer. So that's something that's really important to me as an individual in order to develop. And I'm always trying to improve how I'm doing that and how I'm displaying myself to potential candidates. It influences company culture. As I said, our company is made up of our people. We're software consultancy. So it's really important that everybody is on the same page in regards to that and really understands what's important to us. We have strong values. We have our vision, which is to build a better world with decentralized technology. As I said, we're moving more into the blockchain space. So it's really exciting to meet someone on an interview that shares that vision or feels like they can contribute to that vision, that has like that innovative mindset and is interested in these new technologies that we're specifically working with. And then more on like the internal side of things, I'm working to make sure that we're following compliance, whether that be, government regulated or as part of our handbook. It's really important to deliver what we say we're going to deliver, again, in regards to benefits and expectations when we're bringing on new individuals. And then finally, I'm trying to think about ways to set our employees up for success. This isn't just on my end, but the partners are involved in this process as well, as they are involved with a lot of the processes within my department. So this is when we're considering mentorship programs, training programs, development programs. And again, this is more of a partnership between, we have an operations department and an HR department. So again, these are just some things that are happening on the back end so that you guys can have an idea of what's going on in the HR department when you're joining a company. Every company is going to be different. This is just some insight into ours. Okay, so I want to get into, getting your documents into order. In order is the first step to, the job application process. So I'd like to get into, again, some insight that I have regarding resumes and cover letters. So to start, when you're drafting your resume, it's really important to tailor your resume to each position. So really take your time, look at what the job requirements are, look at what they're looking for, and try to use language where you describe where your experience is that applies to that job that you're applying for. Your format and layout choice is also very important. This is especially important when it comes to a design position, for instance. I have seen and been impressed by design technologists that really take a resume and make it their own and kind of show, some of their design abilities on their resume. So I would consider that. And then also, when you're thinking about font sizes and type of font, always make sure that it's readable and that, you know, the layout makes sense. I have some examples on the next page where I'm going to go over, you know, in my opinion, what a good resume looks like and what, you know, maybe a resume that could use some improvement looks like. So we'll go over that in just a minute. And then when you are thinking about what to include, what not to include, it's really important to put yourself into the HR manager or whoever is doing the interviews position when you're considering what information to include on your resume. So for instance, you may have a lot of experience from back when you were 16 that has nothing to do with the job that you're applying to. Maybe consider leaving that information out if you're able to fill the rest of your resume with other information that is more significant for the job you're applying to. I would try to keep your resume down to about a page just so that, you know, whoever's looking at it doesn't get overwhelmed. We're always looking at lots of resumes, so that's important to keep in mind. And then your GitHub portfolio and projects. I do like to see that on a resume, especially when a resume kind of leaves me wanting more. One thing to consider when you are including that on your resume is that if someone takes a look at that, they might have questions. So just make sure that you're reviewing your GitHub and making sure that everything on there is, you can speak to everything that's on there. Same goes for your projects or, you know, your website that shows your portfolio. And then just keep in mind that the whole purpose of submitting your resume is to be able to get yourself in front of a recruiter. So it's going to be your first impression. You want to get yourself in the door. Even if you might feel like you're underqualified for a job, it's really important to get yourself in front of someone and be able to make that lasting impression. Because even if I feel like you're not a good fit for the job that you applied for, I might, you know, say, okay, I really like you. I feel like there's a lot of potential here. There's another project we have coming up next month. Is that something you'd like to be considered for? So that should be everything, you know, for resumes. So let's get into these two examples that I have here for you. So these are both just sample resumes. These people are non-existent. I just want to say that first and foremost. So Desiree over here, this is what I'd like. This is an example of a resume that I like to see. So she has all of her contact information right here. It's right at the top. It makes sense. She gave me a little blurb about herself and what she's passionate about. I can appreciate that. She's got three examples of job experience where it might be applicable in this situation. She's got her education, her technical skills. I will say I especially appreciate when someone includes their languages. I don't want to have to guess, you know, or maybe you know more languages than what's in your work experience. So that's really important. And then one thing I would ask, for instance, if she was applying to a design technologist position or some kind of design position, that's just the first one that came to mind because it's one of our positions that we offer, is I would say, did you design these icons here yourself? And, you know, did you design the layout of this resume? I really like to know that when I'm looking at those types of resumes. Then over here on the right, Craig, he has great experience. He's got great education, but I'm missing his email, which is really important. I don't want to have to go digging for someone's email. I want to be able to see it right at the top. And the layout needs work. Everything, the spacing isn't great. It's difficult to read. You know, my eyes are having trouble separating the different sections. So there would be an example of a resume that could use a little bit of improvement. So now we're going to move on to the cover letter. The first thing on a cover letter is how to address the individual. If you can't find the hiring manager or you don't know who's going to be reviewing your resume, that's okay. There's some standard language that you can use. Some examples I gave here are "Dear hiring manager and to whom it may concern." If you can go on the website and see that there's a clear hiring manager or a CEO or a partner, then you can use that as an introduction, but it's really under your discretion. It's usually safer to use some standard language if you're unsure. And some things to consider when using a template. So I am speaking from experience from reviewing other templates. And I did have somebody the other day that had the XXX from a template and meant to put our company name in there and left the XXX. So I put it at the bottom. Always remember to proofread. We do catch those things. I'm understanding, but it makes me think that a candidate isn't as serious about our position. And do I want to take that time to have an interview with them if they're not taking the time to proofread their cover letter? So really think about that. Show that you've done your research about the company. So if you are applying, for instance, to our company and you're interested in blockchain technology, even if you don't have a lot of experience in that, express that in your cover letter. You know, if you can put some personality into it and some passion behind it, if you're saying that you're motivated, try to express that without just saying that you're motivated. Tell me what motivates you. Tell me, you know, that you've been looking at forums and doing research on your own, and these are the types of coins that you like. You know, just try to add some personality and differentiate yourself from the rest of the candidates that are applying to the role. Okay, let the job hunt begin. So once you have your documents in order, these are kind of the next steps that I had in mind regarding the interview process. So where to look for opportunities. Number one is networking. A lot of the employees that join our team or contractors that join our team come through networks. So whether that's forums, groups, meetups, you know, I can't say it enough that you want to make connections with people. It's really important. There's also company websites. You can reach out directly to the hiring manager. Even if there's a position even if there's not a position listed on the website at a company that you're really interested in working for, and you've been doing research or following their articles, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Email the hiring manager directly or someone on the team and just say, hey, I'm really interested in working for your company. These are the reasons that your company is intriguing to me. Do you have any opportunities? Do you have any mentorship programs? Do you have an internship? I really appreciate when people take initiative and go out of their way to express interest in the company. And those are the types of people that I want to work with. So if you have the ability to do so, if you're really passionate about the company, I would say go for it. Then other ways is Glassdoor, LinkedIn, etc. Indeed. You should view the company's LinkedIn profile that you're applying to. As I said, some companies are generating content, especially tech companies. So go through, read their articles, learn a little bit more about the company, follow the company. You know, those are some ways to really show initiative, as I said before. And another thing is Reddit forums. There are a bunch of Reddit forums out there where other software developers are discussing where they got their first job, or they're happy to answer where they got their first job. They might say that their company's hiring. I post some of our positions on Reddit. So that's just another resource for you to be able to look at if you are on the job hunt. And then one other thing I wanted to add is that LinkedIn has this new feature right here, like underneath your profile picture, where you can say that you're open to work, so that when someone in my position goes to do like a recruiting search, we can filter out who's interested in work and who has the skills that we need. So just make sure all your skills are up to date on LinkedIn. Make sure you have a profile picture, your job experience, because those are all filtered out, as I said, through that recruiting search. Okay, so you've landed your first interview. Now what? Number one is be prepared. As I've said, I think 3 different times, make sure you're reading the job description and you have an answer for exactly what the posting said that the position calls for. So if I come to you and say, hey, are you familiar with Web3? We did require Web3 experience for JavaScript. I'm just using this as an example because this is something that comes up with some of these blockchain related projects that we're hiring for. And even if somebody doesn't have blockchain experience, Web3 experience rather, or blockchain experience, I can appreciate that they can say, I don't have Web3 experience, but I've been looking at forums. I've been like playing with some of this code beforehand. I think that it's something that I can pick up. I've been eyeing this boot camp. These are the things that I'm doing to get myself familiar with Web3, and this is why I'm interested in it. The other thing is to, view the interviewer's LinkedIn profile right before your interview if you want to. That's going to notify that person that you looked at that profile. It's going to let them know that you're, doing some homework and doing some background research before you enter that initial interview. So that can be helpful if you do know who your interviewer is. It isn't always clear depending on the company. For ours, it is. And then be ready to present, have a project in mind. This goes back to what I was saying about the GitHub links and project links and profile links. Just make sure you're prepared. And even if you weren't told ahead of time that you're going to be reviewing some of your code, just be prepared to do that if need be. You never know if someone's going to say, hey, while we're here and we have some extra time, can you pull that up? Any opportunity you have to show off your skills and show what you're capable of and show what you're passionate about, that's going to be something that's in your favor. And then I would also say to communicate the following if you have the opportunity to. What motivates you? Not just that you are motivated, but why are you motivated? What about this position caught your attention? What about this company caught your attention? How are you improving your skills? So even if you you completed your boot camp last month or last year or 2 years ago, how are you continually making improvements to yourself? And maybe even what you're interested in a company for continuing education. And where do you see yourself in 5 years? If you want to be a full stack developer in the future, let that interview person know. Let them know what your goals are. It shows that you're ambitious. It shows that you're driven. And even if that your path may go somewhere else, it shows that you've done your research about the opportunities that are in front of you and what you're really interested in. So they can keep that in the back of their head. This is somebody that can communicate well. Maybe this is someone we can make a manager in the future. And then the other thing is to know what's important to you and to be prepared with questions that give you insight into some of those things that are important to you. So I gave a lot of examples here. And as I said before, flexibility, benefits, company culture, mentorship opportunities. These are things that you should keep in mind whether or not they're important to you, so you can express that if need be during the interview. When someone has a clear vision for those things, it helps a hiring manager feel more confident about whether or not someone's going to be a good fit for the company. And it's also important for you to find a good fit for the company that you're, onboarding to. If you want that flexibility, you should look for a company that offers that type of flexibility and mentorship opportunities and educational opportunities. Another thing to think about is what size team you want to work on. What size company do you want to be a part of? There's implications when it comes to a smaller company is always going to be more tight-knit and working together. And it's something that larger companies will try to preserve, but those things inherently do change. So it's important to ask questions, even if it is a larger company. Ask important questions like, how are you preserving the culture as your company grows? One example that I put in here that I thought was a good question from somebody that asked me recently was, as an employee, what do you have to say about the company culture? So, really appreciate those important questions that come up during interviews. Other interview tips: dress professionally, be direct, try to avoid your ums as I go. And then if you're doing a Zoom call, be really mindful of what your background looks like. If you should be blurring your background, try to do your interview outside of a room somebody else is in. These things do happen where someone will be having a conversation in the background while I'm trying to conduct an interview. That's really distracting and it takes away from the interview. Another thing is to request the interviewer's email if it isn't accessible to you. We're in a time where you should follow up you should still follow up an interview with a thank you message. That can be difficult if you cannot find the email anywhere. So if you feel confident enough during your interview to ask for that email, it's a great way, you know, in a couple weeks to just check in. And as I said, right after the interview, you should really thank them. You should also thank them during the conclusion of the interview. Just say, you know, I really appreciate you taking the time to discuss the job with me, the job opportunity, whether or not you are really interested. If you are interested, I would mention that and say, if you think of anything else, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You have my email on my resume. And as I said, that's really important. Okay, so in conclusion, one of the number one tips I would say is, as you approach graduation, stay in touch with your classmates. Add your classmates on LinkedIn. You never know where you're going to end up. You never know when you're going to reconnect with someone, and those connections are really important. I recently had one of my old friends become a marketing manager, and I needed some marketing advice for hiring. And I would have never known that he got into marketing if I wasn't connected with him on LinkedIn. The other thing is, don't be afraid to fail. You might have a horrible interview. It happens. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to other people on this call. Learn from it. Really try to be introspective and continually work to improve yourself. And then the last thing I want to say, just to wrap up the call, is to be proud of how far you've come and excited about what's to come. I know that the interview process, the application process is very tiring. It's exhausting and sometimes unbearable. But once you get to the end, you really need to appreciate, you know, everything that you've been through, and you're just going to continue to grow, and you should continue to look for good opportunities. So that is everything, and I'm ready for questions if anyone has any.
Awesome. Thanks, Natasha. Any questions for Natasha? Feel free to take yourself off mute or throw them in the chat.
I have a question. Not that it's happened to me, but I know somebody that has happened to. It might be off topic, but how do you know if you've been blacklisted?
Are you saying in regards to like a hiring manager?
Correct.
Saying that you aren't. I've never blacklisted someone before, so I can't say that I have personal experience with that. I would just say that if you feel like you're not in a good position with a hiring manager, it sounds like in that instance you would be, is that there's plenty of opportunities out there, and I would just consider maybe what led to that instance and move on from it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Latonia. If someone applied and didn't join the team in that round, how long would they need to wait before they can apply again? And then you mentioned mentorships.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be a contractor and a mentee at the same time?
So to answer your first question, I would say if you haven't heard back within 2 weeks, then I would just send a follow-up email to say, again, it was a pleasure to interview with you. And I was just checking to see if I am still being considered for the position, and if you had any questions that I could answer. And then to answer your second question, we're currently working on our mentor program over here, and every mentor program is going to vary depending on the company and whether or not they even have one. So that would be another good question, like directly to the hiring manager, to see where they're at, if that's something they offer, if they offer internships, etc.
All right. Any other questions for Natasha? Going once. All right, Natasha. Well, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to speak to all of our students. I think you had your contact info on the slide deck, and I've circulated in the Slack channel as well. So, Natasha, if it's all right, if folks have follow-up questions, is it cool if they reach out to you?
Of course, yeah, happy to help.
Very good. Thanks, Natasha. All right, Natasha, thank you again. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Wait, hi, Natasha. Before you drop, I actually see 2 questions in the chat.
Shoot.
Can I just verbalize those? Sorry,
Please.
I
No,
should have
that's
stopped you
okay.
earlier.
Let me see. Can you go into decentralized technology a bit? Yeah. So decentralized technology is a beast of a topic. I'm not going to lie. But when it comes to, the generals of it, some of the more recent projects that you're probably used to seeing is, Bitcoin or Dogecoin. But there's endless possibilities. There's also games that exist on the blockchain, and some languages that are specific to the blockchain include Solidity, familiarity with smart contracts. But it is a new growing technology. There is a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of the companies that we're working with are startups that are interested in these types of technologies. So I would encourage you to, if you're interested in it, take some time, listen to some podcasts, watch some YouTube videos, and that really will give you a sense for what to look for. And if you're really interested in it, if you reach out to me, I can provide some resources and podcasts that I would recommend if you'd like to learn more. And then red flags in the hiring process. So as I said, the first thing I look at is a resume or cover letter. And if there is grammatical errors, spelling errors, those are some of the things that I look out for on the resume and cover letter. And I'm really looking for some of those other things that I mentioned, where someone puts a lot of effort into their resume to make it specifically catered to the job. If I specify in the job description that I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, and that they're a requirement, for instance, like experience with React, if you don't have React as a language on your resume, then I'm going to move on to the next resume. So that's really important. And then during the interview itself, if you have things happening around you and it's distracting me, if you are, anything really straightforward, if you were shirtless, if you were not answering the questions that I was asking, those are the types of things that would be red flags during the interview process for me. And then I think that's everything in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Anissa, for catching those. And thanks, Natasha, for those answers.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great presenting for all of you. And as Jesse said, I'm available if you have any additional questions. If there's any way that I can help, I'm happy to help. So, and I hope you guys have a nice evening.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
All right. With that, Anissa, I'll hand it over to you and Ryan, and have a great class, everyone.
All righty. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, folks, are we ready to kick off our Wednesday? Happy Hump Day. Yay. Cool beans. All right, so as always, we're going to start with, we had a guest speaker, Natasha, but she's not here, so that was great. And also, if you think of any questions right now, for whatever reason you can't get in contact with her, totally send them my way or Ryan's way, and we can convey those or notify whoever if you need to, okay? All right, so I'm just gonna kind of go through this really fast. Our recap from Monday talked about the weakest link being humans, and I've kind of said that about 50 times every class period. So I think you guys have got that by now. Malware, again, being intentionally designed negative influencing software. Phishing, fraudulent attempt to grab information by pretending to be someone. Then we talked about the OWASP top 10, which you guys have done a lot of practice with at this point. So SQL injections, broken authentication, cross-site scripting, insufficient logging. We went through this at length on Monday and yesterday. And then we also talked about security assessments, remembering that there's a couple ways that you can assess your web application or your software by testing it in various regards, which we're going to talk about a little bit more tonight. Well, a lot more tonight. A couple of those scanning tools like we touched on yesterday are Nmap, Nessus, Metasploit. Those are like the top 3 in the industry, I want to say. Usually, if you're joining a cyber team, they're probably using one of these 3 scanning tools at the moment. So it's good to kind of, like I mentioned yesterday, familiarize yourself, go get a free trial, go run a scan on your own device. It's really good to see what those scans look like, what the results look like, what the remediation steps look like, so you can really see them real time. It'll really help it come full circle for you. All right, so like we touched on yesterday, we started talking about the CIS controls. There's 18 of them. I told you all to review that link last night or some point today before tonight's class, because we're not going to go in depth about them. I'm going to go over them, explain my personal thoughts while sharing the tabs with you, but I'm not going to be sharing, crazy amounts of bulleted slides with all of that, because they're not all going to apply to each one of you, right? So when we get to the second activity portion of tonight, that's when we're going to go through. I'm going to have you guys again explore with what you talked about with yourselves yesterday and finding out those risks with your capstone project. Today, you're going to find those control mechanisms. How are you going to defend against those risks that you yourself identified yesterday? And then we're going to spend the rest of tonight kind of figuring out those steps and put it all together tomorrow to really secure and harden your capstone project. Alrighty. So yesterday we touched on inventory and control of enterprise assets. Remember, that's meaning physical devices, laptops, phones, printers, routers, all that jazz. We also talked about the control of software assets, aka every application installed on every device and every operating system, and what updates are run, what patches are needed, etc. And then we talked about data protection, which itself is just that sensitive data lockdown area where you're mitigating directly against that risk of breach of sensitive data, and you're protecting your data in various ways like we discussed yesterday. Okay, so now moving on. Let's see. And again, I'm not touching on every one of these controls. So for right now, I'm just going to go through, I think like 6 or 7 more. CIS Control 7, that's continuous vulnerability management. The key word here is continuous. It's not called vulnerability management. A vulnerability scan is not a one and done. We talked about this at length. Just like security assessments, just like risk assessments, they need to be ongoing because your environment's changing, the threats are changing, users are getting added, removed, settings, permissions. You got to keep running those scans. So, key here is continuous vulnerability management. We're developing a plan to continuously assess the vulnerabilities, track those vulnerabilities, and figure out what we need to do with those risks, with those vulnerabilities, and what actions we need to take. Now, you can see here, this last line is key. Monitor public and private industry sources for new threat information. What does this mean? This means that you have to trust the experts, because you and I don't know all of the threats that exist in a cyber landscape. I wish I did, but I'm not a robot. I can't see the future. I can't predict that. There are people, there are analysts, there are organizations out there who run these studies, who get those threat intel, right? They're like, okay, well, I see that in Europe, there seems to be this malware that's propagating a lot. Let's be on the lookout. Or here in the Midwest US, there seems to be a lot of phishing campaigns because of the, political election in Georgia, whatever, right? Whatever it may be, you have to turn to industry professionals and trust their opinion. So for example, a big organization, and actually I'll share a link with you, or I'll just type it in the chat and you can Google it. Anomaly. The name of the company is called Anomaly. That's the organization, and they're a threat reviewer. And basically, if any company has an Anomaly subscription, you basically get reports for all upcoming threats. current threats that are happening, projected threats that might come on the landscape that we should be on the lookout. And this is based on industry information that other professionals have submitted so that those professionals can make those assumptions. With Anomaly, you can also search error messages, you can search CVE codes, you can search malware hashes, you can search all of that and get approximate details on all of them. Where were these last found? Is this common? This is a 2017 strain, or this is a 2021 strain, blah, 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 right? You can get a lot of details on an executable, a malicious executable, if you pop the link in there, a malicious URL, anything like that. You can get a lot of details in Anomaly. It'll tell you red X, that looks to be unsafe, green check, nope, we checked our databases based on everyone else, this is looking pretty good. Feel free to click on it, it looks fine. So remember that there are sources that exist out there for us to rely on. We're not expected to know everything and be some sort of magical security wizard, right? We have to rely on these other areas and we are expected to rely on them. Questions on vulnerability management? Cool, pop them in the chat if anyone comes up. All right, CIS Control 8, Audit Log Management. Who can tell me which OWASP top 10 risk does this directly defend against? Logging, great, exactly. Insufficient logging, right? Insufficient log management. So that's why there's a control in place to efficiently log, okay? Oh no, employers, that's a good point though, because employers are the only people who are responsible for being audited technically. So that's actually, that's an obvious, which is, I'm glad you said that actually, because that's actually a very good point, Ariel, and I'm gonna talk about that. I want you to understand that as an individual, if you're just Latonia, you know, on Google Chrome, you're doing whatever you're doing, no one's gonna come audit you, okay? Unless there's some legal reason for someone to come take a look at your internet monitoring, right? That's the only reason you're gonna get audited. If you're Latonia, as part of a business, you've got a pillow making company and you're called Latonia Pillows, now you are, I don't know why I thought of that, I don't know, but let's just say you love making pillows, right? So let's say you have a website, you've got customers, you've got information, you're responsible for data, okay? You're now eligible to be audited. You need to follow those standards, okay? If you're dealing with information of other people other than yourself, you're responsible for it, and you need to prove that you are holding that in good care. That's what auditing is. So Ariel, I know I went long-winded, but thank you for bringing that up, because an individual like you or me just chilling on the computer every day, no one's ever going to come audit me, right? But me as a freelancer for my organization, Tech with Anissa, of course I'm going to be audited. I got to make sure I have my receipts, my invoices, my payments. Who am I missing this from? Is it documented? Blah, 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 right? What are my fees? Are those properly outlined? So same thing with log management. This is not only, again, remember we talked about this. Remember I said that if you have logs, but you don't even review them, it's like you don't even have logs. This is why it's very clear here in audit log management. It's 4 keywords: collection, alert, review, and retention. Okay? Collection, alerting, review, and retention. Step 1. That's the first of 4. 25% of it is simply just making sure you've got the logs at a regular basis. You've got a log management system to collect security logs, system logs, software logs, etc. Okay? That's literally 25% of it. So like I've been talking about all week when I say, okay, if you have only 1 day of logs, don't even send them to me. This is why. Because if you only have 1 day, I've got 3 other steps that you're completely wasting my time. You don't have the information for me. Collection is only one part of the problem. Alerting, okay? If you're collecting logs and you're doing nothing with it, that makes no sense. If you're collecting it and you're like, okay, alert me on all high priority alerts, like all failed login attempts, I want to know every time a user fails a login. Alert me if a user fails a login 3 times in 1 minute. I want to get extra alerted on that. I want email alerts there, right? Because again, you can collect logs. Who is sitting there 24/7 looking through logs? Who's doing that? No one's doing that. That's why automation exists, right? No one's going to sit there every day scrolling through, making sure they don't miss anything. That's where alerting comes in. You have to set those alerts up, create those alerts. Latonia, what's up?
I probably should use the hand thing, but
No, it's
so
all
what
good.
you just said made me think of how, like, when I'll use a different device and I'll get this alert, is that you? Is that part of someone else making sure that they're covering themselves as
So
far
that-
as collection and alerts? Does that make sense? Okay.
No, good question. That is part of two-factor authentication. So that's separate from a logging issue. That's just like a authentication verification. So the username and password is not enough. They want a third level, right? They want that second, in addition to your user and password, they want something else. So that's going to be a code sent to your mobile device, code sent to your email, a face ID prompt or whatever. So that's two-factor or multi-factor authentication. Good question. All right, cool. Any questions on oh, something else I want to say about log management, and this is very clear with the second half of this definition, that could help detect, understand, or recover from an attack, okay? So this takes some research and some trial and error as well. I don't want every single event. I don't care if Latonia logged in after lunch. I don't want to get an email alert the 50 times a day Latonia logs in successfully. I don't care, okay? I don't care if Dominique logged out for work at 5 o'clock. I don't care. She's leaving for the day. I don't care. I do care if Latonia tried to log in, she failed her password for 3 times. What's going on with Latonia? Now I'm concerned. That's weird, right? So it's not only collecting every single log, because remember, you've got to retain those logs. That takes up memory, that takes up space in an organization that they have to pay for. No one's trying to pay for 10 years of every single log, right? You got to pick your battles, but pick things that are going to help security professionals in case of an attack, right? So what's going to help you understand this is understanding what logs you look for when you get attacked. Those logs are primarily security logs, software logs. Those are the top 2. You're always going to look at your security logs, right? That's going to tell you your failed and succeeded logins, password changes, admin usage, all of that. Your software logs are going to tell you where things are going. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of movement there, like user moved file from main finance folder to personal desktop. That's a little weird. Why'd you move a file from the main finance folder to your personal desktop? I want an alert there. Okay. If certain folders are more important to me, I got to put an alert on that folder. I want to know if Dominique moves this folder. She should not be moving it. So alert me if she does, because I need to take an action on that. So when I say log management, I want you all to understand that it's not just, okay, I got my logs, I'm good, I have them. No, you need to get them, alert on them, review them, understand them, and keep them, and get better in the future from them. And they need to be there to help people in the future, not just, okay, logs, check. That's not helping anyone, right? You've got to be meticulous about it. Don't just do it to check the boxes. Okay, questions on log management? Cool. Okay, I'm not going to go too crazy in this one. Email and web browser protections. This is really, again, think of the secure email gateway when I talk about this. So these are just those extra third-party programs to extra help your web browser and your email. So whether that's, extensions on your web browser, whether those are plugins, security plugins on your email, anything like that, phishing catchers, any sort of gateway, anything like that that's like a spam filter external, that would fall under this control. So that would be something like, okay, I noticed that my 10 employees, 6 of them every week are clicking on a phishing email. I don't want to deal with that. I need to implement some sort of third-party filtering system in place. So that would fall under this control, right? It's something very specifically to protect email and web browsers, okay? So if I were to talk to you, hey, Latonia, tell me how to protect your HTML file. This control has nothing to do with that. This control is very specifically email protection, protecting from phishing attempts, protecting from cross-site scripting in your web browser, protection from, you know, sensitive data breaching within a database, a SQL injection potentially, but very focused on a web browser and all things associated. Questions on this one? This one's pretty straightforward. All right, malware defenses. This is quite arguably one of the biggest defenses in security, is protection against malware, right? So what malware defenses are is preventing any sort of malware from existing, basically. This is not just being downloaded. This is not just, okay, first it's downloaded, then it's spread, and then it's spread, and then it's clicked on, and then it's spread from network to network and blah, 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 right? We're talking about every step of the way here, okay? So we don't want malware to exist anywhere. I don't want to see it in downloads folder. I don't want to see it in URLs in my email. I don't want to see any attempts in my form online. I don't want to see any trace of malware, okay? So this is, you're going to probably 99% of the time need some sort of third-party assistance here for malware defense, right? Anti-malware, anything, unless you're capable of writing your own, you know, reverse engineering scripts. Reverse engineering, let me touch on that. That's a career. So you can go into reverse engineering, and that's exactly what it sounds like. So what you're doing is you're trying to defend against malicious scripts. So you take a look at a malicious script that an attacker writes, and you now counter and write a reverse script to literally reverse that malware from even existing on your machine. It's extremely difficult. I will say that that takes years of experience, and even like a couple years of me working in the field. And I'm not using myself as a baseline, but I'm just saying I was working with my co-analysts, and it was like gibberish to me. Like I had no idea where to even begin, because I hadn't been around scripting that often. So I will say that reverse engineering is a role for someone who loves programming, loves security scripting. And I'm not talking about software engineering. I'm talking about very specifically security scripting. You enjoy writing hashes, writing encryption protocols, like that kind of thing. That would be where, you know, malware defense would kind of come in for you, because you can just write those programs, those scripts right off the bat to protect your organization against those. Any questions on malware defense? And while we're going through these also, I want you all to think, like I told you yesterday, but I'm going to remind you, think about which of these controls are best applicable to your project that can defend against the risks that you identified for your project. Hint, hint. After this, you are going to be going off and doing that individually for a little bit. So, you know, keep thinking about these as we're going through them, and really think about, for the risks that you went through yesterday and identified, which one do I think I want to tackle and implement to harden my project? So be thinking about that. Okie doke. Data recovery. Okay, this is another career. I'll, you know, do this when I talk about careers. Data recovery is AKA disaster response, disaster recovery. You're basically the sole person. You remember when I talked about what if all week? This is the what if job right here. This is, in case of a disaster, what are the steps that you need to take? Okay, so you need to understand all of the potential risks in your organization from a security standpoint, all of the potential users that are affected, all of the data retention. You have to understand all of those pieces. You have to understand all of the potential attacks that could occur on your network. And thirdly, you have to understand how to protect against each of those what if scenarios that you created. Okay, that's your literal job. Your job as a disaster recovery analyst or a data recovery analyst, as this overview says, is to establish and maintain those data recovery practices. Documentation is a huge thing here because all of this is hypothetical, right? You're only creating these solution sets for what if scenarios, right? You've got to document that. No one's going to expect you to memorize what to do in a disaster scenario, right?
Anissa, real quick, Jahil asked in the chat, can we use software for this, like Norton Firewall?
For data recovery? Jahil, are you referring to data recovery or the previous control? I'll wait for you to let me know in the chat. So thanks Ryan. So for data recovery, firewall, no, that would be a no. So firewall would be more used for protection against outside, external negative forces. Yes. To harden your security, 150,000%. You should have a firewall implemented. It should be turned on. If you don't know how to turn the firewall on your local device, I suggest Googling it ASAP. I could tell you how to do it, but what's the fun in that, right? There's no fun in me just telling you how to do something unless you go through it yourself, right? So I'm going to challenge you guys to some homework tonight. Make sure that your firewall is turned on. If you don't, you're getting a 0. I'm just kidding. I'm totally just kidding. But for your own safety, it would be good to harden your security. Yes. So thanks for bringing that up, Jahil. Shai, you said backups. That's literally data recovery, right? That's living and breathing data recovery. So the last and final portion within data recovery is ensuring that you have backups, okay? If an event were to occur, if something were to happen, what do? Does everything get lost? Are you able to recover items? Hence the name data recovery. Do you have any backups? How old is the backup? Is it last week? Because that's losing a week of information in a company. Or is it from yesterday? Because then that's only losing a couple hours. So again, this is all under the data recovery, disaster recovery area, which it's very important to document and kind of be that analytical thinker like I've been talking about and really play that what if devil's advocate role here because you need to kind of defend against that. Questions on data recovery for now? All right, network monitoring, I'm gonna skip for now. Security awareness, I'm not gonna go in crazy depth because it is like what it says, and we've talked about this at length yesterday. But I want you to understand that security awareness and user training is so important that it's its own control, okay? So like I told you, documentation is often overlooked within cybersecurity. The training part of cybersecurity is often overlooked. But why is it overlooked if it's a control, right? So people in the cybersecurity space are always in that technical go, right? Everyone's like, oh, but show me the code, show me the Python, show me the encryption, show me the documentation, show me the user training, right? How are we teaching this stuff? Where is it being documented? And how are people getting better? How are people learning this stuff? So first of all, a security training program is important for any employee who is to join your organization, making sure they're up to speed with whatever is going on in the security landscape of your company, but also skills training, right? They're two separate things. Security onboarding is different than security skills training, right? Onboarding, you're checking the boxes, going through slides, you're cool. Skills training, you actually are going through learning a new skill. For example, proper password management, right? Like literally making through everyone in the organization go through and change your password to a very complex password and make sure that it's pushed, that they need to change that every 30 days or whatever, right? Actually pushing those skills. That's the second part to this. And of course, the goal is to reduce any of those risks within your organization, right? That's the goal. All right. 2 more controls and we'll go on break, and then we'll come back and talk about our projects. Okay. Application software security. This is basically what we're going to cover tonight. So I'm not going to go into crazy depth here, but this is just protecting your application. And doing whatever it takes to protect that. Whether you create those protection mechanisms, you develop those from external partners, they're hosted, you buy them from someone else, whatever it is, but you're figuring out those weaknesses by conducting a security assessment of some sort. And then you're monitoring those, seeing what's attainable for you to fix at the moment. And then you're actually going through and remediating and solving those problems one step at a time. Okay, second to last one, incident response and management. Incident response, I talked to you about this before when I talked about my role as a forensic analyst, and kind of doing that, hard drive analysis to figure out the root cause to a problem. So incident response goes hand in hand with log analysis, right? So as part of your incident response plan, as you can see here, ensuring that you've got log management goes hand in hand with that. Because if you're trying to respond to an incident, remember, what's the first place we're looking? What am I going to ask the client for? Someone say it. Someone type it. Someone say it. Latonia said it. Logs. Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly what the first thing is that you're looking for, right? So I know that I said that all these controls are usually operational very individually, but incident response and log management go hand in hand. So remember that. So incident response, separate from the management portion, okay? Response is understanding, okay, if this were to happen, what are we going to do real time, okay? When the client calls me, what am I going to tell them real time? Okay, so for example, if I've got a malware executable that someone downloaded to their machine from a malicious URL from email, right? The first step that you would need to do is probably disable that user's rights, isolate that machine from the network, do something like that to remove that, right? That this needs to be part of your incident response plan. I can't create that for you. That needs to be your role as an analyst, your team's duty to discuss that, monitor it, document it, and okay, these are our steps. Whenever we get an incident call, we follow these. Step 1, get the information from the client. Step 2, figure out how many users were impacted. Step 3, how many machines have been infected. Step 4, what are some hints that the client has said that they're seeing for us to get some clues, right? Whatever those steps look like. And then also, this also goes hand in hand with data recovery and disaster management, but figuring out the people who will be doing what. Is there going to be a specific person who needs to take notes, specific person who's going to be talking to the client to calm them down, specific person to do the screen share and literally take over the mouse from the client and walk through and go through and isolate things, right? What's actually going to be the process? Because I'll tell you right now from experience, you don't want to figure this out when an attack happens, okay? Ryan's saying, yes, that's exactly true. You don't want to, oh my God, what do we do? I wish we figured this out earlier. Well, that's why you have an incident response plan in place. So when an attack happens, you pull up the document, everyone's on the same page, you can be cool as a cucumber, and you figure out your problem, you tackle it, you go step by step, okay? And I'm saying that lightly. Of course, incident situations are very high pressure, right? They're very, of course, like you've got to, but at the same time, it's not your job to freak out, okay? It's the client's job to freak out. Your job as the incident response analyst is to tell them what the steps are that need to happen. That's your job. Your job is not there to be emotional. It's not tell them, oh my God, well, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to lose millions. I would be screaming if I were you. No, that's not, you're not here for that. Okay. So I'm not telling you to lie to the client and say, oh, it's all going to be fine. I'm not saying to do that, but I'm not saying to freak the client out for a situation that you don't even know yet. Okay. So take it one step at a time for each fact as you take it and tackle it that way.
Can I add one quick note?
Oh, please.
So there's one other thing that generally I've been told when it comes to like incident response. And Anissa, you can tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, but generally, like, it's much better to prioritize fixing something partially quickly than fixing something fully slowly. So it's better to get like partial operational like capability quickly, restore functionality as fast as you can, even if it's not the full functionality.
100%. Thank you. And that's really, really good to mention, because normally in security, we're taught like, okay, we got to get this perfect. This needs to be perfect. If it's anything less than perfect, it's not good, right? Not where it comes to incident response. When you're responding to an attack, when you're responding to an incident, any step counts. Any step that you can take to secure the client, do it. Do it instantly. Do it as quick as you can, because time is not on your side, okay? The attacker is taking more information every minute that goes by. Something else on the network is going down. They're infecting some other machine, right? So Ryan, thanks so much for bringing that up, because that's exactly true. Anything is better than nothing. I don't care if it's 2% done, better than 0%. Anything, you got to get something done. Start where you know. Okay. So I'll tell you this from example. My first ever incident response call, I had been working in cybersecurity for like 3 years. I had no idea what to tell the client. I'm like, the words couldn't come out. Didn't even know what to say. And my lead had to like come in and be like, okay, well, here's where we start, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, like I should have had a plan or something in place. So you're not ever expected to know this off the top of your head. Like every incident is different. In fact, no two are the same. They're all going to be different. So you have to start with where you know. So always start with either two areas. One, the low-hanging fruit, if you're able to attack those and secure them. Or secondly, the area that you feel the most confident that obviously would also secure whatever you're dealing with. And you got to start there, because you can't, well, let me say this. If you're ever presented with a situation where you have no idea where to start, do not try to take 2 hours of someone's time figuring out where to start, okay? You need to call someone else in from your team. You need to be okay with asking for help. It doesn't mean you're an idiot. It just means, I've never seen this issue before. Can someone maybe give me some advice where to start? Drop a message in Slack, right? Be like, hey, I'm dealing with, malware propagating on the network here. I don't even know where the executable is. Any ideas, right? Everyone's so happy to help you. Someone is going to be there to be like, oh, I got you. Yeah, let me just like pop on whatever, right?
Generally, that sort of stuff is like a priority one interrupt, and people will like drop everything and help you. So
exactly. And like I said, because time is on your side, you need as many hands on deck. So no one's going to be like, oh, I don't care what Latonia is asking about right now. That can wait. It can't wait. And everyone knows that, right? So it's not like, oh, hey, can you run a report for me? All right, I'll get back to you in 30 minutes. It's fine. You're not going to die, right? But like, okay, I have malware on this network right now. What do I do? Oh, I'll get back to him in 45 minutes. It's okay. No, it's not. That's a problem. And I will tell you, speaking from a manager's experience, I have come down on people on my team before for not assisting a lower level analyst or someone who needed assistance. That was a no-no. What on earth were you doing at that time that was more important than assisting with an incident? No, it takes full priority to do that. And other managers will agree with me in that scenario. You will always be expected to assist in a high priority situation like that, because time matters. All right, cool. Last one. penetration testing, which we talked about yesterday, but we're going to go through this again later tonight, is really just looking at those weaknesses, taking the results from your security assessment, from your posture assessment, and figuring out, how can I break in myself? So you're seeing, okay, what are these weaknesses? Let me try doing this myself, right? Whether that's a weakness in technology, a weakness in a human, like I talked about social engineering yesterday, a weakness in a policy or a plan, anything, a weakness in anything, right? If there's some sort of vulnerability that you are attacking, whether that's an emotional vulnerability, anything, if you're attacking something or someone to get data in return, that is penetration testing. That is attacking a vulnerability. So ton of roles within penetration testing. You can literally be a penetration tester. I will say that it's harder to find entry-level penetration testing roles. And that's exactly for what you're thinking it is. It's because you have to be able to understand a lot of the problems before you can defend against a lot of the problems. And that usually takes a couple years of some hands-on experience to go through, see what that feels like in a real life scenario. So then you're able to really, penetrate and provide that assistance to other companies later on. Alrighty, guys, I'm done with my lecturing. Yay. Any questions on any of the controls before I let you guys go on break for 15, and then we'll come back and work on project stuff? Any questions?
Yeah, actually, when you were talking about incident response management, and you were talking about starting somewhere and going up to the low-hanging fruit, I was a little confused by that, because it seems to me that it'd be more of a triage situation where you need to start with whatever's the most crucial to protect first or something like that.
Yes. So
I just don't have an idea of how these things work, or maybe you are talking about starting small on those areas or something. I don't know, but
no, you're right. So you're right. So 90% of the time for any incident response analyst, of course, triage, whatever is high priority, means anything that's affecting the most users or the most data, you've got to tackle those first. What I was saying is that if you're ever presented with a scenario where you have no idea how to do that, the better thing to do is do something that you know, or tackle those low-hanging fruit, because it's better than nothing. So Kyle, good point. Of course, top priorities are always going to be what's going to better secure the client and their device and their data, or themselves. But if it's just you and you're in the situation, you have no idea how to do that, and you can't get a hold of anyone or whatever, don't give up, don't back off, start somewhere that you know. So somewhere to a good place to start would be disabling the user. Usually start there, or isolate the device from the network, power it off or whatever, right? Start there, potentially, if possible. That's in a perfect situation if you can start there. And then, at least you've got something done. And then that buys you some time to get people to get back to you and get those other fixes. And then you can tackle those as you see fit. Great question, Kyle. Thanks for bringing that up.
Another thing that'll often happen too in those sorts of processes, you'll have a small team of people and you'll all kind of go off in different directions and all kind of work on something else. And it's really important to have sort of a hierarchy where you've got someone who can kind of communicate the result to sort of outside stakeholders. I don't have as much experience with it with incidents in the security sense, more just customer sorts, high priority customer sorts of issues. But when that stuff comes up, there's a really high tendency for people who are not engineers to try to reach out to you directly and try to ask you for updates. There's nothing more frustrating than having to try to explain to someone what you're doing when you know you should be spending your time actually fixing the thing because it's high priority.
Yeah, and that's a really great point too. So, and I'll talk about my time at Center for Internet Security. So I worked on the CERT, which was the Computer Emergency Response Team. And there were a group of 5 or 6 analysts, and we had clients at a time, and we would be allotted 2 to 3 weeks per case or whatever. And we had to outline those communication expectations with our client. And that was always, I will reach out to you if I have any questions, okay? If I'm at a place where I can provide you an update, I will do that. Otherwise, my time and resources need to go to fixing the problem, not explaining to you the technicalities of behind what I'm doing. And you're going to have to go to an admin to explain it to you anyway. That's a help for no one, right? So, but again, to Ryan's point, to mitigate any sort of confusion down the line or distaste or disrespect, simply say, hey, what do you prefer for communications? Are you okay if I provide you with a weekly update at the end of the week with any findings or any pressing findings? Let me know if you're cool with that. If not, let's come up with an area where we agree on, or if there's someone else at play. But yeah, communicate that. But to a bottom line, do not waste your time explaining something to a client. That's not why you're there. You're there to analyze the problem, not explain it, right? You can explain it after. You can write a whole 30-page report and they can read it at their own leisure. That's fine. But unless it's a real-time pressing new issue that they just newly found that will help your case, don't waste your time and resources. Thank you, Ryan. Love it. All right, cool. So one more question and then we'll go on break. Does that go back to delegate? Yes, exactly. So this goes back into creating your incident response plan. This is exactly that. So if you are lucky to have multiple analysts working on one case, then maybe one of you will be the technical researcher, one of you will be the communicator. That's great. My time at CIS, it was just one analyst per case. So we had to very clearly say, I don't have time to respond to your 3 emails a day about what you found and what you want to know. I'm sorry, but I don't. If you have a question, call our SOC and they will, ask us at our time and we can get back to you. Our SOC is our Security Operations Center, which is like the first line of defense. So you can call them, go through them. If they have any updates on the ticket, they can go through the time and explain them to you. I'm not here to do that. And being very clear about what those are in the beginning. So yeah, but if you've got more than one person working on it, great. Susan's going to be the tech script writer. Brandy's going to be the client communicator. Kyle is going to be the report writer, and beautiful. But I'll tell you now, unless you're at a really big organization, it's probably not like that. It's probably just going to be you. So incident response and the areas like that, just be prepared to kind of have to maneuver and wear a bunch of different hats. Cool. Great questions, guys. I love it. All right. So let's do a 15-minute break. So I'll see you guys back here 7:02-ish, 7:01, 7:02, right after 7. And then we'll get right back into our projects, talk about control mechanisms and all that. All right. So see you back here 15 minutes. Good work, guys. All right, folks. We're gonna get back into it. Alrighty. So first thing, I just want you to remember what we did yesterday. So remember that you first had to identify those 3 risks. I didn't tell you to order them in any specific order, but I wanted you in your groups to identify 3 specific risks that you think presented after walking through the OWASP top 10 and after kind of making that assumption on your own. So today, I need you to do numbers 2 and 3. So first we're gonna go, I need you to rank them in order of importance. So take the amount of risks that you have, you should have minimum 3. If you have more than that, great, but I need you, well, if you have 0 risk, that's fine. But I will challenge you, I will assume you have some sort of risk somewhere. Not to say that you created an insecure application. I'm just saying there's always risk. I wish people could have 0% risk, but that's just not possible. So if you have less than 3, chat with me and let's figure that out. And we can go through them. But even if you have 1 or 2, that's fine. Rank them in order of importance. And then I need you to pick the best security control to mitigate the risks that you have. So if you've got 3 specific OWASP identified risks, tell me which specific CIS control will directly mitigate that. Based on you have all the OWASP top 10 links. Ryan, I'll ask you if you can please just drop them in the chat again. Thank you. So the OWASP top 10 and then the CIS 18 controls. So I'll give you guys about 10 minutes to do this. Just work individually. Won't do the breakout groups like yesterday. So rank them in order of importance to the best of your ability, and then pick a CIS control to mitigate however many risks that you have. So there should be a 1-to-1 ratio for however many risks. There should be 1 control to offset that. Okay. So take about 10, 12-ish minutes or so. We'll, let's see, 7:07, 7:20, take about 13 minutes, and ask me any questions if you have them, but just go through that and kind of organize your thoughts a little bit. Okay. So before we kind of get into some checklist items to go through into how to actually talk about fixing those issues, anyone have any questions, concerns, comments before? We're going to touch base on this again at the end of class tonight, so you'll have more time to go through the steps. I just want to go through some checklist items before, things to think about, etc. And then you can ask more questions after, because I'm sure you'll have them. All right. So first of all, web application security, what even is it? It's the process of protecting your application, your website, your service, whatever, against potential security threats. Any sort of security threat that you can protect against, that is web application security, okay? So basically, if you're working with a web application, which is anything working with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc., there's a certain slew of vulnerabilities that can attack those, hence the OWASP top 10 that we have been talking about nonstop. So this is that security functionality. We talked about the assessments, so we're going to go through some tips and tricks now. So first of all, your first line of defense is always going to be a web application firewall. So in a perfect world, if you are able to implement some sort of firewall, you're good to go, right? So it's able to decipher legitimate traffic versus malicious traffic. That's able to run through any other compliance checks as well, like PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance, FERPA compliance, anything like that. And you're able to kind of run through those checks right through the firewall here based on whatever organization you're working with, right? So again, that is very specialized depending on what you're doing, where you're working, what you need to kind of filter through. Now, that gives you visibility into potential alerts or threats or attacks into your network. You are now completely compliant because you can show that you are selecting this, you're filtering this, you're monitoring this, and you are actively mitigating against it. Of course, you're able to actively threat monitor, which is great because you can see, oh, so I'm getting, a couple brute force attempts every week. Let me make some attempts there. Oh, we're getting a couple phishing attempts, etc.
Riel asked, is there any particular firewall companies you recommend?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm a Norton girl, so I've always used Norton. I've used it at work. I use it on my Mac. So I like the interface. I like the GUI. I like the alerting. I've been an admin for Norton. I like how the back end works. So again, I'm not going to say Norton's the best. I'm just going to say that's where my comfort zone is. And I feel like it's easy to implement, easy to understand for different user levels, easy to push to various devices with varying operating systems to multiple user groups. Really easy to lock that down, in my opinion. That's the answer I would give.
I want to ask a follow-up to that. Are there any open source options you'd recommend?
Oh, so I will say that we had an open source option at CIS. So it's not really open source because it was just available to CIS employees, but it was called Albert. And that was it was our play on Einstein. So it's like, oh, we're going to call it Albert. Haha. So we thought we were funny, which it was. It was very clever. I thought it was. Anyway, and it was a really, really great web application firewall that a security engineer on our team actually developed. And what was really nice about it was that, first of all, we had like an agent that we could deploy to each laptop, which was really great because each user kind of had control over it. And we set it up that way so we could give users like the empowerment of their own data, which was really nice to be able to control that and lock it down. But other firewall opens, I'm going to have to look into that, get back to you. I don't really know any. That's a good question though. Any others? Cool. Yeah, interrupt anytime if any other questions come up. Okay. So, couple items we're going to talk about on a little checklist here. 4 items. So 2 on this slide, 2 on the next slide. First, information gathering. I think you can get it by now that you can't really do anything. You can't defend against anything unless you've collected the appropriate amount of information. If you don't have anything to work with, what are you going to protect against, right? And I'm not asking that to be snooty. I'm literally asking if you have no idea what's going on, if you haven't gathered any information, any facts, what are you going to do, right? You need to start with that information gathering step. Take a look at your application, review it manually, okay? Look at all the entry points, look at all your login pages. Think about this directly with your current capstone project. I'm not talking hypotheticals here. I want you to literally have these thoughts in your head, okay? Think about, do you have any prompts for the user to input any information? Think really deep about that. I'm sure 90% of you do, and that means you're inputting data, you're retrieving data. What did we talk about? You have any sort of data input, you are reliable for securing it, right? So talk about those, look through them on your own. No one's going to go through this for you. You're the creator of the project. You've got to go through, all right, where can people enter? Where are all possible login screens or input areas? Are there any areas in my application that are admin only? And is it password protected? What does that look like, right?
And when in doubt, like, try it out. Like, if you're wondering, like, am I vulnerable to this? Give it a try and see if you are.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of this, because you can never tell me, oh, that won't affect me. Prove it. Test it on yourself. Try to break in. Show me that it won't affect you. Then I'll believe you, right? But prove it. The first thing anyone's going to ask you, prove it. Ryan, you said that no one's going to break into your login screen. All right, prove it. Let's see. Let me try to break in. Let's see, right? So remember that red team, blue team penetration testing that we talked about? Use someone in this class, okay? If you got to test it with your peers. That's the point. It's peer review. You created the application. You're only going to look at it in one way. You need a second pair of eyes. Go through your analysis, make your assumptions, have someone else go through it. They're not going to rip you apart. They're going to simply help you in areas that you missed. That's always good. And of course, the information gathering, no one's expecting you to memorize this. You should not be memorizing this because you're not going to remember everything. So document it, okay? Take notes. Is that a shared document? Are you working with someone on this? Are you just taking bulleted points? Are you commenting your code? What are you doing here? But there needs to be a regular, protocol that you personally have to make sure that this is happening. Also, the key, third-party hosted content, okay? If you created and developed your code from scratch, you've got nothing to worry about. It's your own work. If you're hosting information with another party, if you're using another party to help you feed in logs or integrate something, test that too. That's called third-party risk, okay? If you are inputting information in your JavaScript form, okay, but you've got some sort of Squarespace integrator there, right? Squarespace is a third-party vendor. That's not you. You don't own Squarespace. You didn't create it. That's not you, right? You're pulling it in from someone. What's going on there, right? Have you denoted that? Have you let your clients and your customers know? By the way, information that you input here is seen by Squarespace at some point. No one will sell your information, whatever. Have you gone through those steps, or are you just turning a blind eye to that? Are you trusting, nah, Squarespace got me, I don't have to worry about it? What did we talk about trusting people? We said we don't trust people and we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. Only
I thought that was just for hackers. I thought that was just for spammers, not for third-party folks.
Yeah, third-party folks, because that's the thing, because let's say I'm going to use credit card information. This is a big one, right? So let's say we're at a healthcare company. Dominique had back surgery and she put her invoice through. She paid it with her MasterCard, right? We're processing that information through, let's say, paychecks, right? We process our invoices through paychecks, okay? Ultimately, if we've processed that payment through paychecks, they have touched our customers' data. Is that correct or incorrect? They have. So we are telling our customers, we got you. We have all of your information safe. We run scans. We're good to go. We're the healthcare company, right? We're forgetting about the whole paychecks part of it. They're touching data too, right? We need to account for that. We need to say, but we're not responsible for anything that goes on through paychecks, or if paychecks happens to be breached, or all process payments or process through paychecks, be notified of this, right? It's your job to notify your customers. You want to be transparent. Do not leave people in the dark so they're thinking, oh my God, but Latonia, I thought you were processing my cards, but now it's paychecks. I heard paychecks got breached. I don't want to do business with you, right? There could be other factors at play there. You need to be transparent. This is especially when it comes with other people's information. If you're just hosting your own information, you don't have to disclose that to anyone because you're not touching it. No one's information is on there. It doesn't matter. But if you are touching anyone else's information, especially PII, right? That important personally identifiable information, it needs to be outlined and denoted to your clientele. All right, second portion is authorization. So first we've got our areas, right? So we have our pages with forms, data input. We kind of have a main idea of what we're looking for. Now we're going to talk about authorization, right? Where are people able to log in? What happens here? What happens if I forget my password? Does the application break? Or what happens, right? Does it say, oh, try again? Or does it just say, oh, request timeout? I have no idea what to do. Have you catered for situations like that, right? Like we talked about before, if you are having a validation checker for an email address, right? If you enter a non-email address in that field, what happens? You need to test this stuff, right? If you test coffee, if you type coffee is great, 107, right? Is it going to say, okay, great, I'll send you an email? It shouldn't, because that makes no sense. That's not an email. That is zero validation. So that's you taking the lazy route. And I'll tell you that straight up. That's you taking the lazy route. You didn't go through those steps of validation. And I'm not saying you're the only one that's lazy. We're all lazy. I'm lazy with my code too, right? It's hard to go through those steps. Like there's how many if else statements are you going to have, right? But you need them sometimes.
And frankly, we'll see, Anissa, if you agree with me on this, but like different web applications at different systems have different risk profiles. And for certain things, like you really don't have to be as actively concerned about this stuff. Like if you're like, for example, building a prototype to test some sort of new technology, you don't need to be thinking about like actively all these sort of security things because like no sort of customer information is going to be there. It's sort of your own sort of playground environment. This sort of stuff really becomes, at least in my experience, most important when you're working at a company where there's like real people's information on the line and real money on the line, and like lawyers are involved and like all these sorts of like businessy stuff.
Always, yes, always. When you've got some sort of legal team, litigation, information that's being processed from a financial standpoint, healthcare, those areas should ring a bell to you. Like, okay, especially you guys right now, I'm going to ask you this question. If your capstone projects have anything to do with personal information to someone, I'm going to challenge you to take a step further. You've got to further harden your application because you're not talking about Phobelia's favorite colors, all right? We're talking about Phobelia's healthcare records that she's trusting me to take that data, right? I don't want Kyle and Ryan and everybody else knowing what's going on with Phobelia, okay? So very true. It's understanding those risk profiles. If I'm talking about everyone in this room and our favorite colors, who cares, right? I mean, a hacker's not gonna be like, yes, Kyle loves blue. I've unlocked Kyle. That's not, no, I wish maybe Kyle is just blue everywhere, but you know what I mean, right? So understand those risk factors again to the best of your ability and think, okay, which of these are, again, how do you, and a follow-up question is, oh, well, Anissa, how do I know what's the most risky? Think like an attacker. Where would you try to break in first, right? If you're presented with a bunch of stuff, let's say you're presented with a list of favorite colors, a list of bank accounts, a list of logins, a list of passwords, and a list of email addresses, right? You tell me, what are you trying to attack first? Someone tell me right now. Login, bank account, passwords, anything like that where that grants you pretty good access to someone's information, right? I would argue that bank accounts would be the top priority because remember we talked about breaking in, but also acting on that. So not the ability to only break in, but what you can do if you get access to a bank account versus what you can do if you get access to my Starbucks membership, right? I mean, can buy a venti, hurrah, good for you. You can't transfer funds, right? So again, understanding those risk profiles, super important. Great. All right. The other two, cryptography. I know you did an entire module on this before me. You can't doubt it. I confirmed the syllabus before and Ryan's here as my witness. So I know you spent an entire week on cryptography, okay? Secure all of your data transmissions. Have your specific data areas been encrypted? What algorithms have been used? Can you use stronger encryption algorithms, right? Are we using AES 256? Are we using some really crappy low-level encryption just to check the box of encryption to say we did it? Do errors exist? What happens once in a blue moon if I'm offline and I try to log in? Am I able to? What happens? Test these scenarios out. Any what if scenario, test it and document what you're testing. Denial of service, right? So like we talked about before with authorization, improve an application's resilience against a potential denial of service threat, okay? So if an account were to be locked out, right? So let's say Latonia, someone tried to hack in and they're trying to log in 60 times and they lock her out of her account. Now Latonia, legitimate Latonia, she's going to try to log in. She's getting some error that she's locked out, right? What happens? What have you accounted to happen? Have you accounted for that, right? Have you created some error message saying, hey, contact your administrator because someone has attempted to access your account or whatever. Contact your administrator because we are looking into details. Have you notified the user or have you just left it blank? Has your application broke or have you given the user an error message, right? And then you're going to ask me, oh, well, how do I know what to do? I'm going to ask you as a user, if something were to happen on when you're using an application, what do you expect? I expect an error message. Oh, listen, you have an incorrect password, try again. Or, oh, we were expecting an email address and that's a phone number, try again, right? Or does it just break and say request timeout? We all hate to see when that happens, right? When things break and it's like, oh, HTTP timeout request, try again. You got to refresh, start from scratch. Does your application do that? I don't know. We'll have to find out. Test it. Let me know.
And also, like when you see that sort of stuff, those are sort of threads you want to pull. Like when you see something like that happens, that's like, something unexpected happened here. Maybe there's some sort of interesting weirdness I can take advantage of to try to get access I shouldn't normally have or things like that.
Yes, exactly. Take that a step further. So remember, you got to think like the attacker. So if you're like, oh, wow, so I'm able to get in, try to get in further. Try to break into the SQL database. Try to break your own application. Who's going to get hurt? just you. It's your own application. You're not hurting anyone else. You're only helping yourself, right? So that's what we're going to be doing tonight and tomorrow. You're going to really go through the time to test this stuff in whatever way that you see fit for your project. All right. So other thing I'm going to share is an OWASP cheat sheet. I'm going to drop this in the chat. This is going to be your guide. All right. Hold on to this for dear life. Save it when you go into the workforce, print it out, put it at your desk. I don't care what you do, but this is going to be really helpful for you in the long run and right now, but more so in the long run. So I'm going to give you guys time to go through this, but basically now we're transitioning to the testing of your actual application. All right. So we're applying our specific controls to our project. So we've identified our risks. We've prioritized them. We've chosen the controls which are applicable to the risks that we identified. Now, utilizing the cheat sheet that I gave you right now, this cheat sheet, utilizing the OWASP top 10 controls, vulnerabilities, utilizing the CIS controls and those benchmarks, those sub controls that I talked to you about, which are all on the site that I shared with you. You have to tell me how you're going to secure your application, okay? This is your module project. I repeat, this is your module project. So I'm going to send you an email with this. We'll put it in chat, but you already basically have 70% of this done. You're welcome. So the last part of this now is, and this is not for my benefit, guys, okay? This really has zero benefit for me at all, actually. This is only helping you, okay? So, and I need you to actually submit this stuff to me. So I want you to either send it to me through chat or I'll give you my email or whatever. I don't care if you even send me a Slack message with a bullet point, don't care. But I want to see what controls and benchmarks that you're going to implement, how you're going to do that, and how you plan on testing it, because tomorrow, the rest of class today, I want you to kind of figure out a plan, okay? So right now you're coming up with a testing plan based on all of the resources that I gave you and myself. That's why we're going to spend the last hour of class for you to shoot your questions at me individually in chat or verbally if you feel comfortable with it. So we can go through that and best figure out a list of areas for you to tackle that's attainable and realistic. Get to it tonight, whatever you get to. We're going to spend most of class doing this tomorrow, but this is your point right now, okay? So I believe that I've entrusted all of the cybersecurity protocols that I think you need to harden your application. So we went through those potential attacks. So that's getting you in the mind of an attacker. We've gone through those defenses, which is getting you in the mind of a protector. So now you understand how to attack and how to defend. You understand how to actually go through an assessment and what to look for, how to test. So now you need to look at your projects, be very honest with yourselves, look at those risks that you've outlined, the controls that you've defined to them. Tell me how you're going to test it and how you're going to make it better and how you're going to prove to me that it's secure. And how are you going to know that you're done is if you tell me, hey, Anissa, my application is secure. What am I going to say? What are the 2 words I'm going to say?
Prove it.
Thank you, Jahil. Yes, I'm going to say prove it. That's what this document's going to be. If it's a Slack message, I don't care. That's going to be you're showing me this is how I'm going to show it to you. I've walked through every possible scenario. I've gone through all the what ifs in my head. This is what it looks like, Anissa. This is me proving it to you, okay? That's you proving it to me. Take the rest of class. I want you to focus on this. I'm here for questions. I am an open book. I'm here at your disposal. Please utilize me and Ryan for any questions. You can send them to me directly in chat. Like you can, select me and send them privately. Ask questions to classmates, please. I urge you to. And if you don't want to ask just anyone, use the breakout groups that were yesterday, because you had a good 30 minutes of intimate conversation, okay? That can be your BFF circle. reach out to them. Be like, hey, remember those risks we talked about yesterday? What are you thinking about control, blah, 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 right? Go ahead, go do that, enjoy it. I'll be here for any questions. And then let's touch base again at 8:20, close off for the night. And then we'll get right back into it tomorrow. Okay, so work on this stuff until 8:20. We'll close off for the night. But please ask me questions in the interim. All right. Get to work. Think like an attacker. You are a hacker at this point. You're trying to break your application. That is your goal. I'm not being sarcastic. Your goal is to try to steal and break information. You got to think negatively. That's going to help you. That's how you're going to protect it. Think of all the bad scenarios, get them all down, and protect against it. If you have any questions, that's what we're here for. I'll leave the slide up.
So Anissa, Kyle and Susan have some questions in the chat.
Taking a look right now. Thank you. Hi, folks. Sorry, I didn't realize that it was 8:25 because I was slacking with a few of you and did not realize that. All right, cool. But good progress for tonight, guys. I love it. I love the questions that I got from a lot of you. And I want you to keep this up. Now, tomorrow I am going to, tonight was just making sense of everything that we were talking about, kind of coming together with a plan. Tomorrow night is definitely going to be a lot more, I mean, this is all we're going to be doing in tomorrow night's class. So it's really going to be that time for you to actively test your applications, actively go through that. If you tell me you're done, I'm going to take a look at your application, take a look at your code. But that's really what tomorrow is all about. So I'm really going to be kind of active in here, like, hey, Kyle, send me what's going on. Let me see what you're working on. And not in a accusatory way, just in a way to assist you in a very direct, personal way. So we can go through it, help you better secure it. And if you're good to go, you're good to go. But the key here is really having a list of outlined risks, a list of outlined control techniques that you suggest putting in place. And once you have those two outlined, you and I can work together, come up with a list of tests to run, to attack, ways, test cases to come up with. We can brainstorm ideas. We can do that tomorrow, but at least tonight and up until tomorrow's class, have the risks outlined and the appropriate controls that you think should mitigate those risks. That's all you really need for tomorrow. And we'll make sure to get through these test cases tomorrow and kind of verbalize what we plan on doing. So then you can submit that for Sunday, like you have always for your actual assignment. Any questions before I let you guys go for the night? Awesome. Send me an email if you have any questions, Slack message, anything like that. Please fill out the 30-second feedback form. Actually, Ryan, are you able to drop that in the chat, please?
Yep.
Thank you so much. Awesome, guys. So let me know if you have any questions. But other than that, I will see you tomorrow night for our last night together. I can't believe the week is already almost over. Crazy. So let me know whatever questions you have. But other than that, have a great night and a great day. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good one. Good work tonight, guys.